fishing, it's in my soul.
Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
Hello, Salt Strong Nation. Joe Simons, like diamonds. We are back. This is going to be a good one. This guest is really cool because I was not that aware of her, even though I'd seen some videos recently. And I had the podcast with Captain Mo Newman. And at the end, I put Mo on the spot. She did not know I was going to do it. And I said, Mo, name someone that you think would be cool and has an awesome story and doing some cool stuff in the industry that I should interview. And she mentioned Jessica Haydahl, Richardson, not to mess up the name like Mo did on the podcast. And I had just seen your video about this female outdoor content workshop. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. And I put it all together and sent you a message. And here you are. So, Jessica, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. And yeah, Mo is amazing, as you probably found out. And I really appreciate her always kind of championing me as a photographer in this industry. And, props go out to her all the time on that, in that regard. So,
well,
yeah.
It sounds
Thank
like
you for having me.
Yeah, it sounds like you're pretty amazing as well. I spent some time on your site on the Jessica Haydahl photography, and on the published section, it just kept going and going. And, Marlin magazines, Angler's Journal, I mean, tons of different magazines that we all know and love as anglers. And you have the cover on tons of them. You've got, obviously, endless amounts of amazing photos that have made it in. And I'll be honest, when we got in this industry, I did not realize the importance of really good high-end photography and or videography. And I think a lot of brands can get by on this kind of like bootleg, like, off your iPhone, kind of shaky productions and bad editing for a while. I think people like the grassroots thing for a while, but to truly get to that next level, you got to have the good stuff. And kind of an interesting story, we've basically built our brand, by editing our own stuff and kind of having just good content, not great professionally done content. And we kind of hit like a ceiling, if you will. Like we just weren't growing the way we thought we should. And if any of you guys have seen our brand new website or the new face of our website, saltstrong.com, we finally went and got some professional photography, hired a professional like you, hired a really professional web designer, and spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And at the time, I was like gritting my teeth saying, this is horrible. And boom, all of a sudden, we started like having that growth again, all because of that brand image. And I think it comes down, and we'll talk a lot about this, Jessica, of the feeling, the emotions of sharing and being proud to share something with your friends, right? Whether you're going to your office or a church or, a fishing lodge or whatever it is, like you still want to be proud of where it is. It's cool to say it's grassroots and it's, kind of underground or a speakeasy, but it's even cooler as something grows to be proud of it. And I feel like that's what professional photographers and videographers like you do. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, here's the thing with the advent of social media and, everybody's got a camera now. Every single person I know has a camera on them. And I get asked that question. I get asked a lot, people just wondering, well, how does that affect you? But I still think, and I always preach this, I still think there is value in us professional photographers because if you hire a professional like you did for your website, you really start to notice the difference. When you hire a professional photographer, you're not just getting better photos. You're also getting someone who has been in the industry, who will show up on time, who won't get drunk, who won't, well, hopefully not. If they do, then they're maybe not the best one to hire, but who will have proper gear and cameras and lenses and knows how to write contracts and invoice correctly. I mean, there is, the way I look at it is, the 11 years I've been running my business professionally is what you get when you hire me. And I think there is immense value in that. There's nothing worse than talking to either a brand or just even people in general who have hired a photographer, and they're like, yeah, I hired my Uncle Bob and he was terrible. And I'm like, well, I wouldn't hire Joe down the street who's a farmer to do my taxes unless he's a savant. So I really do think there is value in it. And just like anything, when you do spend money on it, it is always tough. I've hired a web designer before, and oh gosh, that is a pretty penny, but there's a reason why they're a professional, and there's a reason why they cost that much, because they know what they're doing and they're good and they'll get it done. And so, yeah, I still think that there is a true value in hiring professionals. We just got to kind of fight through the muddy water a little bit more to get there.
Yeah. And just the storytelling. And obviously for me, I can now put a dollar to it. It's not just saying, hey, it looks better. It's a whole different ballgame when I could say, like, we are now converting more people who come to saltstrong.com than we were before. And
which is incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same founders. Nothing has really changed. The same offer. It looks so much better, and it tells a story. It just like a lot of your pictures that you've captured. I mean, it's a story. It's emotion. You want to share it. It's awesome. So I want to take a step back. Like, how did all this come about? Were you born with a camera in your hand? You got parents who love this stuff too, or what?
Well, this is a disclaimer, so your audience doesn't make fun of my Canadian accent. I am from Canada.
Oh, yeah.
I live in the United States. I met a Texan, married a Texan, and moved to the U.S. But I'm from Vancouver, Canada, and actually I was born pretty much with like hockey skates on my feet. Before I was into photography, I was always really kind of artsy. I have a very artsy mom who paints, and she had a really cool film camera. And growing up, I used to just play with film cameras. I am of that generation still. I know I fall into like, she was really upset. I was making fun of millennials the other day, and then I realized, my husband turned to me. He's like, you're a millennial by 1 year. I was like, what? Like shocked and upset, just to give a hard time to the millennials out there. But so I shot film growing up just for fun, and I was pretty terrible. And I played sports, and that was my main focus. I was actually a Division I women's ice hockey player in college, full scholarship to Wayne State University in Detroit. Cool. And but photography was always something I was messing around with, and it wasn't until I got to high school that my mom finally was like, look, I'm not going to pay for any more film to get developed until you take some courses and just figure out how to actually work the camera. So she gave me her 1978 Minolta film camera, which I have today still. And once I got into that darkroom in high school, and my teacher was I had a great teacher, and ended up buying a darkroom off the high school. My dad built me a darkroom in a shed in our backyard and put a massive industrial fan in it so I couldn't get high off the fumes, is what he told me. And it just was an obsession that turned into a passion. And I went off to college to play hockey, and that was my main focus. But as a female, high performance athlete, you soon realize that your opportunities, there is no, proper NHL for women out there. There is some, higher end leagues, but nothing that's going to pay you money. So unfortunately, everything you work for as an athlete comes to a grinding halt after your 4 years of college. And, for men, they have that option to hopefully go on and make money in the industry. And so I was doing photography, taking courses. My university in Michigan didn't have a photo program. And I always say to kids today, if you're going to university, actually do pick the school that has the program you want to graduate with. Because I didn't. I went to school because I saw a full scholarship in my name, and I was like, I'm gone. And, we got to play all the fancy schools and Harvard and Yale and Princeton and stuff. But, it was, my obsession just grew, and I graduated in 4 years with a business degree. And then my mom really wanted me to come back to Canada, and she found me a 2-year professional photo imaging photography program. So I went back to Canada and started 7 years of post-secondary education. I had a degree and a diploma, and then I was working full-time as a photographer. So that's kind of how I got my business rolling, and the fishing side of it kind of was random.
So like your parents fish, the outdoors people, or?
Yeah, well, my father's Norwegian. My parents are both immigrants to Canada. They came over. My parents are quite elderly. My mom will hate me for saying that. My dad currently is 87, and my mom, I actually won't say her age. She'll be mad. But
hey, 80-year-olds don't listen to podcasts, do they? Come on now.
Oh, my dad! I'll make sure at Christmas we get this rolling for my dad to listen to. He won't know how to turn it on the iPhone, but I'll get it rolling for him. Yeah, they immigrated to Canada. They came over on ships back in 1952 and I think 1954. And my dad actually came into Ellis Island in New York and made his way across to British Columbia to be a logger. And he was a tugboat captain in the end for 47 years. So I grew up on the water, on boats all my life. I was a tour guide at one point, have a 15-ton offshore commercial license for driving whale watching boats. And, my dad and I would always do camping things, and I have siblings, and fishing, and I fished in Norway and stuff like that. But it was never anything that was like, it's Sunday, we got to go fishing, or it's Tuesday, we got to go fishing today. It was just whenever there was time in between soccer, hockey, and baseball, and all the other sports, I unfortunately dragged my parents around to. We would just do stuff outside. We're always a pretty outdoorsy family, so not a lot of hunting in my area because I did grow up in the city of Vancouver. But from my dad's Norwegian background, he did grow up hunting and fishing and farming and all that great stuff. So, sorry, very long drawn out.
No, that's awesome. I would say that's pretty legit. I mean, if you're a captain and driving 15-ton whale watching boats, I'd say you had a family that was quite outdoors and adventurous, like many Norwegians. That's so cool. Real quick, too, because you mentioned something that maybe some of the younger millennials don't know. What is a darkroom?
Yeah, so I still shoot film, and back in the day, I had a shed that the no light came in. We sealed off all the light, and I was able to unload film into canisters and put actually pretty terrible chemicals through them. In the end, I've kind of moved away from a lot of the chemical work just because of it's not the best for you. And yeah, I would develop my own film and then make prints and prints in the chemicals. And there's actually nothing better than putting a blank white piece of paper into the developer, and all of a sudden your image appears black and white. And so I had a larger set that helps you print the images onto the white paper, and that's how I started my photography. I remember one of my first jobs was I shot band photos for a rock band, my sister's ex-boyfriend's band, and it was all shot on film, and it was shot, in the evening, and it was pretty fun. And it became we're talking about like thousands of rolls of film. I ended up, once I got rolling on it, it was just like camera was in my hand and it never went away. And actually today I still shoot film when I can. In the wintertime is kind of when I get an opportunity, when my commercial work slows down a bit. And I have maybe 53 film cameras that I've collected over the years in my photography collection. So, wow. And I have a studio. I'm actually in my studio right now, but I don't have a specific darkroom anymore. So now what I do is there's a black bag you can get, and you can change your film in the black bag. You put your hands through these little pockets, and it's all light sealed. And then I can put my film into a developer tank. So I develop it. They've made some new chemicals that are really amazing that can be reusable. And then once the film is developed, I actually just scan everything to my computer, because now everything does need to turn into that kind of digital format in the end for everybody to see, on social media or my website or anything like that. So there's this, I think, mechanical, tactile feel that maybe generations nowadays don't really get as much anymore. Yep. There's something with the shutter of a camera and the ergonomics and the way they've developed those cameras and the beauty of them that I like to say the shutter sounds like butter. It's smooth. So I am a self-proclaimed photo dork. I'm a geek, and I'm okay with it at this point in my life. So,
and so do you have you gone digital at all, or are you just 100% film?
No, I'm a 100% digital.
Okay.
I have not been hired to shoot film for a job since probably, 2001 or something like that.
That's what I figured. But it's your love, and you get it. I mean, it's like an engineer. You have to have it all dialed in, and then even risk, losing, some of the amazing shots to light coming in or things being, ruined. So I was like, when you're telling me the story, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she's still doing film.
No, gosh, no one hires me to shoot film anymore. But I actually have been working on a couple little projects. I said to someone last year, I said, I know this is, 2018. It was, last year. But my goal is to get film images that I've shot published back into a magazine. And they kind of just looked at me and I said, I know this 20 years ago, that was not a goal. That was a normal thing. But today that is not a normal thing. And so actually I've been shooting, some stuff of, my in-laws boat being refitted down at the Merritt shipyard in Florida there. It's a 19, I think 67 43-foot Merritt, or
cool.
66. Yeah, it's one of the original 43-foot Merritts, and it's absolutely stunning. And my husband's been doing the refit with a gentleman named Carl Anderson at the Merritt shipyard, and the Merritt guys have done an incredible job on refitting this boat. And the gentlemen that actually have been doing the majority of the work are the guys who originally built it back in the 60s. So it's kind of been a passion project. So I've been down there and I thought it would be really cool. I'm going to, I've talked with Anglers Journal about doing a story on it, and thought it'd be really neat to shoot some of the older gentlemen in the work yard there, on portraits, and them doing some of the work black and white film to kind of bring back that retro feel, and then shoot some digital as well to show, because obviously when we go out on the water and stuff like that and we're running, I need to use, once the boat is tested out there, I need to use kind of my digital cameras and longer lenses, but I kind of want to do like a mix. I think it might be a really cool story to go from where the boat was to where it is now and try to bring film and digital together. That is my goal. But the boat's not ready yet. So we're still, it's been in the shipyard for almost 2 years. It's been a long project. So
that's cool. I would love to see that. And
yeah.
Speaking of stories, you mentioned something about your dad. I watched I guess it was a short film, The Captain. Is that your dad, or is that just someone else?
Yeah, that's my dad.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I will make sure we put a link to that in the show notes. It was awesome. Like, I got goosebumps watching and listening to it. It's pretty awesome. What a story.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, my dad's one of the coolest guys. So, and unfortunately he's had a couple setbacks with health. So for him to communicate verbally is become a little bit more difficult. Yeah. So luckily I did that last fall, and I think he really liked it. I did make a couple spelling mistakes when I did I had to do captions underneath, just because, my whole life, everybody's had issues with his Norwegian accent, and they're always turning to me and they're like, what did he say? I'm like, why can't you understand him? So yeah, my dad's a salty dude. He's a cool guy, and he is, I'm very, very blessed in life to have amazing parents. So I'm props to them, and I have great siblings, and I'm very lucky with my family. So I just don't get to see them that often because I'm pretty far away from them. But in the end, Montana to Vancouver is about a 14-hour drive to get to where they live outside of Vancouver now. So I do that drive. So next week I'll be loading up the dogs. My husband has to go to Florida to work on that boat, and then he'll join us for Christmas as we get closer. So we head to Vancouver for Christmas every year. So it's a green Christmas, no snow.
Yeah, a whole lot different than Montana. Jeez.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Well, and everybody's like, isn't it cold? And I'm like, well, the border doesn't make Canada magically cold.
Right.
Hot tip for everybody.
Yes.
Vancouver's a rainforest, so they do get snow on the mountains and stuff, but for the most part, it's absolutely stunning and green and ferns and, trees with all the leaves are still on all the trees and moss, old man's beard. And yeah, it's a stunning place, and it's a great fishery if you have any anglers who want to go on a pretty cool place to go fishing. So highly recommend it.
Yeah, and fun for everyone. I've took the whole family there, even the young kids, to Vancouver for a week, and we loved it. And then went up to Whistler for a couple of days too, and what a cool place. So my wife is a Stanley, and so we were staying right next to Stanley Park there in downtown, and spent a day hiking that, and that's so cool.
That's great. Yeah, it's amazing.
So I want to talk about, you kind of touched on it, the let's just take the new iPhone, because I'm an iPhone guy. You've mentioned that it hasn't obviously put you guys out of business, but it's also gotten a lot of people more excited about learning how to take great pictures, right? I mean, I've seen more courses that I get, ads in my feed and stuff to take anything from Udemy to I even paid for one, honestly, the full-time filmmaker to learn Adobe when that was more for the video side of things. But what has that done, and has that gotten more people interested in I know you've got this workshop now that they're like realizing what can be done with a small camera, and then do you have recommendations, would be kind of part two on like a good starter camera if you want to kind of take it up the next level with the zoom and all the other cool things that a nice digital camera can do versus a phone.
Yeah. So, well, the first thing that I always actually just made a video for my old photography school the other day. The one thing I stress is that the best investment you could ever make is in your own education and yourself. I am a firm believer of it. So the props to you for, paying for a course and doing an online course. I think with today, with YouTube and everything like that, Skillshare, there's so many incredible platforms out there to really help people take their creativity or their content creation, whatever form that might be, video or stills. I really think that is an amazing platform that we have today for learning. And I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with more and more people creating better content. I champion it, actually. I think that for what I get out of being a creative person, like kind of is my soul-soothing passion in life kind of thing, as dorky as that might sound. So yes, I believe like trying to get more and more people excited about it and taking photos or making videos, I think is an amazing thing for people to do. And I don't worry about my job because of it, because again, like all those things I listed, I think there's a difference between professionals and enthusiasts. So for the iPhone, man, what an incredible camera they've made. I actually still have the iPhone 7 Plus, but I actually bought the Plus so I could have that portrait mode. And I would always joke with people, I'm like, so my $4,000 lens, which creates that blurred out bokeh in the background, basically my iPhone is trying to replicate that. And I just thought that was the best thing ever. And so, yeah, there's just such amazing apps and cameras that are affordable and apps that can allow you to start to learn to edit. There's an app I just started using on my iPad for editing short videos because I thought it would be really fun to try to test myself editing 4K video out of my regular camera using, I have a NAR box, so it's basically like a wireless storage hub that allows you to transfer images on the fly into this hub. And from there, you can, through a Wi-Fi connection, upload them to your phone or your iPad. So I found this $30 app. I thought that was pretty ridiculous, but it's basically kind of like a Final Cut Pro on an app. And I mean, it's just amazing. So my software that I paid $500 for on my computer works better, but the app is amazing, and it can really allow people to start just making content and creating, and really, like, no one has excuses anymore. You can all create content, and you can all make beautiful images and shoot awesome videos. You just have to put the time in, and that is one thing I really think is also important, is the more you practice, the better you'll get. So otherwise you won't be able to accomplish what you've set out to do. And so,
and what's the name of the app real quick? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's called Luma Fusion, one word. And it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I've created a couple of little short videos on my Instagram, editing through the Luma Fusion. And I'm not sponsored by anybody. I'm not sponsored by Narvox or Luma Fusion, just to let everybody know. But it's just tools that I've found that kind of allow workflow to be a little bit smoother, are things that I'm always looking for. And there are things I really recommend to users out there, because if anybody, outdoor kind of adventure, fishing, hunting photographers know, is that we shoot in pretty harsh environments a lot of the time. So there's things that we do, I think, that can streamline the process, whether it be uploading in the middle of nowhere to protecting your cameras in the middle of a full out storm. So, little tips and tricks I find just help make your life a little easier when you're on the road so much in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I'm curious myself, because, we're doing quite a bit of footage, and I've never had any way to edit it unless I was home, with either my big old MacBook, or when I'm in the desktop version, what's it called? The iMac, or my laptop.
The iMac, yeah.
Yeah, and it'd be so much nicer to have something you could do either on a large iPhone or a tablet. That's so cool.
Yeah, and I think also, I know that people publish fine, beautiful looking images on Instagram video wise as well. But, we have to remember what Instagram was initially created for. It wasn't actually created for photos coming out of our DSLRs or our mirrorless cameras. It was created for iPhone photography. That's what they first created it for. If you scroll all the way down through my 3,000 images I have on my Instagram to the bottom, it was all iPhone photography, because when it first launched, that was the platform, right? Yep. So I think that the apps on your phone, like on my phone, I have the Lightroom app. So if I'm doing something and I take an iPhone photo, I usually throw it into that Lightroom app real quick and just give it a quick little facelift and post it if I am posting it. I have fallen into kind of the curve with everybody else. I don't post a lot of iPhone photos on my feed. Also on my stories, it's mostly iPhone stuff. But with those apps, it allows you to kind of curate your images just a little bit more. And we have to also know, the majority of people out there fishing, or spending time in the outdoors are not professional photographers. And that there's no problem with that. You can still get incredible images, using your phone or a GoPro or camera or whatever you have, and through a little bit of editing, tweak it and really up your content creation and the way it looks. And but again, I think it just takes practice and some other little tips and tricks.
Yes. And to your point, investing in yourself. I mean, which is why our company exists. There's two ways to really get better at fishing. And one is just time that we can't get back. And that means a lot of trial and error. Or two, learn from someone that's maybe done it before you and has spent 15 or 30 years learning things the hard way. And that's why I've personally invested in every course I can, because I went down the YouTube path, because I don't think anything that in the course I bought is not on YouTube. It's just a matter of how long it would find me to take it and to organize it. And so I kept hitting roadblocks, think, oh my gosh, where's this? And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to spend $100 and invest in this course. And it was best investment ever. It shaved off months and months and months of time, and my time is valuable, like yours. I think part two of that was, so knowledge, number one. Part two, once you do feel like, hey, I really like this, and my iPhone's not really good enough for taking professional photos, what's a good kind of a starter camera? Do you have any feedback there?
Yeah. So 2 years ago, if you had asked me, I was not in the mirrorless world yet, shooting mirrorless cameras. I am a Nikon shooter. So I have shot Nikon since I bought my first digital camera in 2005. And once you start to kind of load up on glass of one company, it's really hard, financially for you to make a big leap out of it. And about 2 years ago, I started to get asked questions about shooting video. And so, yeah, my Nikon DSLRs could shoot video, but was not a streamlined process. The autofocus wasn't that great. It was not, the DSLRs were not, a lot of people give it a hard time about DSLRs, but they were not created to do video. That came later. So, I have now switched over to majority all my gear is now the Nikon mirrorless system. Thank God Nikon did release a mirrorless system. But I am not favorable over one brand. I am, the way I look at it is that if you were a Canon shooter, and let's just we're talking in the realm of having actual physical cameras here. Yeah. But if you were a Canon shooter, and you have a lot of Canon glass, well, I think you should stick with Canon and buy their new mirrorless system. They're only going to get better. These companies are not that far apart, and they all cost about the same. So, if you don't have any of that gear and you want to start off, say, full frame, then I would say go into Sony. I mean, they have the most lenses on the market for their mirrorless cameras. So I think that in terms of the three big product makers out there, I would not hesitate for a second to recommend any of those three to anybody. Now, if you're first starting off and a full frame camera is A, out of your budget, or B, maybe slightly intimidating, I have fallen in love with the Sony A6000 kind of series. I own a Sony A6500 that I use just for video stuff and compact photography because I get a little tired carrying around heavy cameras every once in a while. And honestly, they have done an incredible job. And through Sigma, you can, their glass now is made specifically for these cameras, and Sony glass. And then you can buy adapters that can take you from your Sony to your Canon. I mean, the potential is endless. And I think, though, if you really want your photography to stand out, more so than just an iPhone, I do think you need to invest in a camera system that allows you to change lenses. If financially that's a bit much for you to start with, then I think the Sony R100X thing, I don't know the number of it, that's like a point and shoot with a zoom that kind of zooms in and out. But again, if you want your photography to change from a 5 to a 10, shooting with interchangeable lenses will change everything. It allows you to blur your background out if you have the correct settings, zoom in, it just, your quality and your clarity and your crispness and everything like that will go up significantly when you do buy a camera that allows you to change lenses. So, if you're on a boat, though, and you don't want to be carrying around a mirrorless camera, or you just want something fast and easy, the GoPros are amazing. I own the GoPro 7, not the 8, and I did a trip where I shot a whole film in Christmas Island of a group of 7 women fishing, and I shot stills for a magazine, and I went through, I had 2 cameras strapped to me. I had an underwater housing, and then I had the GoPro because the underwater housing, I was trying to shoot still images for the magazine. And yeah, I could flick it over to video, but we're trying to release fish, so we have to be a little bit more conscious of their health more so than me getting the image. That's the kind of the way I look at it. Yep. And GoPros are amazing. You just grab your GoPro, have it in the quick mode, drop it in the water, and I mean, what a great invention! It gives you beautiful 4K footage underwater, like it's with stabilization built into it. I mean, the things that camera companies are doing these days are just, if you can't make great imagery off of it, then maybe buy a tutorial online. It's just amazing. So
with those that you mentioned, I assume most of these DSLRs now, you can do both still photography and video, correct?
Yeah, so it's more the mirrorless systems I would suggest.
Okay. And what does that mean for the layperson? Mirrorless.
Okay. So I'll break that down. So a DSLR is the traditional. I'll just explain it in easy terms. Basically, it's got a big mirror in it. The image you're looking at is reflecting off the mirror back into the viewfinder. That's what you're seeing. There is no digital component until you've pressed the button and exposed the sensor to the light of what you're seeing. That is a DSLR. That is the traditional camera. That is your film cameras. That is the way of life for us photographers until Sony created, actually I don't know who created the first mirrorless camera, but till Sony really took off with their mirrorless camera. So mirrorless obviously is exactly what it means. There's no mirror in it. So when you turn that camera on, exactly what you're seeing in that viewfinder is a digital image that's coming straight off your sensor. So the great thing about mirrorless cameras is, I did learn through trial and error photographing, because when you shoot through a DSLR, you're not seeing the exact exposure that you're about to take. So it is trial and error a little bit. But mirrorless cameras, the exposure that you see on the back of the camera is exactly what it's going to look like. And that's amazing. I mean, gosh, I slogged through years of film, getting so many things wrong, just to find out in, 20 years later, they'd create a camera that I can actually just see my exposure right there, and that you would have no excuse to mess up on it anymore, kind of thing. So, then with the mirrorless cameras came better video functions and better autofocus for your cameras, and it allow you to live preview your image on the back of your screen. And so I think that is the main thing that kind of changed things. The fact that you can, on the back of your screen, hold your camera, look exactly at the exposure and in real time, the image you're looking at, and you can film and shoot stills, and it's fluid, and it doesn't require a big choppy mirror to go fly up to the top and lock it off in the top of your camera. So that is the mirrorless system. That is kind of what camera companies are now gearing towards. I do think if you're investing in a camera today, you should just invest in a mirrorless system. I don't think DSLRs are going to go away, but the companies are starting to put more effort into creating lenses, firmware updates, and software for their mirrorless cameras that if you don't, what did I say to my husband the other day? If I don't adapt, I'll die. Yep. So I don't want to be a dinosaur in this industry. I got to keep up with the kids.
Cool. No, that's awesome feedback. Let's switch over to getting that perfect shot. I mean, you're making a living doing this. So these magazines, and I know everything from, Costa, the sunglass company, to, the Marlin magazines are paying you to get that kind of perfect shot. How do you do that? And kind of walk us almost through like the pre-trip plan of what you're doing. Because I've seen some years where you've got, a mahi like perfect, like in this looks like in the still air, and marlin and tuna. Like how do you get those shots, and how do you even plan for those shots?
Well, you can't plan for any of it. You just have to be prepared on your side and then hope that the fish jumps in the perfect area. So the commercial work that I do with brands like Berkeley and Abu, and I've done shoots this year for Hook, I've done stuff for the bass fishing for Costa and offshore fishing for Costa. And so all those kind of brand stuff, that is totally different than the editorial stuff, which is the stuff you see in the magazines. the brand stuff is the way I approach brand stuff is generally I'll be contacted for a shoot. Maybe they need their new fall line shot of this, and this, or their new reel shot, or lures, or bait, or whatever it is. So most of the time, those shoots with fishing, you really can't set up a shoot like you would with like a model with a backdrop in a studio. I don't really do that kind of photography. So my stuff is very photojournalistic. I try to document our entire trip, but also create what are kind of coined as hero shots in the industry. So a dynamic shot of someone, either, let's say if we're shooting for a rod company, a dynamic shot of someone casting a rod with that beautiful rod bend and the flex and maybe water particles coming off of it. So I basically, when I get on a boat with someone, let's just say bass fishing, because actually I love to photograph bass fishing. It's a lot of fun, and all the bass fishermen out there are so nice. So, I've been sent around to photograph some of these, like the top guys in the bass world, and they're like the nicest people ever. So, cool. They're so used to working with brands that they're over the top, ready to do anything you need them to do on the boat for photos. They're like, yeah, because sometimes I'll ask a bass fisherman, I'm like, can you belly that fish before you release it in the water? I'm like, I know it's a trout thing, but it could look really cool. And they'll kind of just give me a weird look. I'm like, trust me, I think it's going to look awesome. And then we do it and they see the picture and they're like, oh, okay. So, they're very willing to kind of take feedback and whatnot. But when I get on a bass boat, I'm on the boat with the person. I really can't shoot with a long lens because it's me and that person, and we're in how long are those boats? It's 20 feet? No,
yeah, 20, 21, yeah, depending. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, so my take on that is I just get them fishing. I just start them fishing because they just need to look as natural as possible. So when a rod company puts that ad in the paper or has a big poster up at ICAST, it looks natural and normal. So they just start fishing and I just start shooting. And I shoot a lot. I usually shoot on a 3-day shoot. You'll usually get about 7,000 to 8,000 images off of me, maybe a little bit more, because wow. The way I look at it is I'm shooting action, I'm shooting movement, and I might shoot 15 frames, in one sequence, but there might be one that I'm going to pick out of that sequence. So, yeah, I shoot everything from, rod flex, lures, the way the reel's spinning out, and I just try to let them naturally fish. And then if I see the way the light is, or I like what they just did, I'm like, okay, just do that again. Or, hey, I need you to just cast to your left. I know you wouldn't normally cast there, but just do that for one. And try not to bother them too much because I do need them to fish. And a lot of the time I'm on these guys' boats when they're practicing before a tournament. So, they are working, and I understand that. So that's kind of how I approach brand stuff. So we document the entire process, shooting with the gear, to loading the boat, to loading coolers, to getting on the boat. And I just try to document the whole thing. For editorial, the thing is with the editorial, you're only seeing the best shots that I've taken. Out of
thousands, it sounds like, yeah.
Out of thousands. You're only seeing the top shots. And the editorial game is tough, but I think there's incredible value in it. And I get incredible value out of covers. I've had the best year of my life editorial-wise. I've had 8 covers this year, and it blows my mind. I've never had such success before that much. I usually get stuff in magazines every month, but for covers, that's a tough game. And so it's been an incredible year for that. I can't even believe it.
So how does that work? Are you hired for the cover, or do they see your photo and contact you and say, hey, I want this for the cover?
No. So how that works, and actually I'm totally cool with giving up this information to people too, because again, if you have a really cool picture that deserves to be on the cover of a magazine, then, get it out there. So the way that it works with most magazines, you need to decide what magazines that your images might fit in the best. there's no point in, and say if that was like a black and white magazine and you're really a vibrant, colorful shooter, don't send your images to an editor of a black and white magazine. It just wouldn't correlate properly. So, what I have done to when I first got started is, basically, you can email editors. If you go to the Bonnier Corporation owns Marlin Magazine, Field and Stream, Outdoor Life, Saltwater Sportsman, Sports Fishing Magazine. I mean, they own all this massive umbrella of magazines. So you can go to each magazine, and each magazine under, it's usually like submissions or editorial, and it's usually at the very bottom of the web page, and it will have an email address or the name of the editor. And you can email the editor and just send them like a quick 10 low-res in the email sample of some shots and just say, hey, I'd like to be added to your call-out sheet or your call-out list. So the worst the editor is going to say is no.
Right.
But more than likely, if you've got some good content, they'll add you to the list. So how that works is every month from various magazines, I get emails through. I got an email, last night, this morning. I had one image purchased 2 days ago. So it's very random, and I call it mailbox money because it's not, it is a good income in between your regular income, but it does take a lot of work from you, the individual, to take the time to go through your images and select things that you think could fit into what they need that month. So let's just pretend like Marlin Magazine sends me an email and they say, we're looking for dynamic shots of marlin jumping, maybe a certain boat, a certain captain needing offshore shots of, let's say, Panama or Costa Rica out on the fads out there or something like that. So you'll get a whole list, and then I kind of look through it and I say, okay, I've got this, this, and this. I kind of remember in my mind, okay, 5 years ago I shot something that could be this, this, and this. So that is one thing. Is a lot of the time, images that you take might take 3 to 4 to 5 years to make a cover or to get published. But I don't think that's a bad thing, because I look at every opportunity that my camera is in my hand to shoot stock imagery. And that's one thing. When I go to shoot for Mo, and what she talked about in your last podcast about she doesn't have a photographer, I go down and shoot for Mo and Eric usually a couple times a year. And not only are we just best friends, so we can just hang out and have a great time, but it allows me an opportunity to shoot tons of stock, and that's always great, because then Mo gets images for her lodge for Journey South, and I get stock photography, and then also because Mo is so branded with a lot of different brands, I will talk to them beforehand, and if they need things shot, then I'll charge a day rate to go shoot certain specific stuff. So that doesn't happen generally with that many other companies. Most companies have to pay to fly me somewhere to shoot, but for that, because I'm getting a lot of value out of it, which is stock photography, which is stuff I can sell over the next 5-6 years. That's the way I look at it. So let's see, I got asked to go fly fishing tomorrow here in Montana on the Cold River, and I will bring cameras with me, because the cameras will allow me to shoot stock. And next summer, when magazines are asking me for winter photos of fly fishing, I suddenly have a draw from my bag that I can grab images of fly fishing from right now. So you do have to be very proactive in that regard. But the best thing you can do is, just reach out to an editor, start from there, and they'll usually specify what they need. I do have a couple magazines like Boat US Magazine that I contribute to, and I actually just send them some beautiful images of things fishing or things with boats in them. That's the way I look at it. So I send them out, maybe 50 new shots every year. And this year they picked 3 different images for their covers. So it takes a lot of work from the creator to continue and to kind of grind out in this industry. But if you put in that time and effort, it's worth it. And I am such a dork when it comes to published work, because that is actually when I first started shooting. When I first saw my first image published in a newspaper, I don't think there was anything that could ever top it. That was like, I played hockey, so that was like my Stanley Cup. That was like my Olympic gold, with the way I look at it. And actually it was, I shot in the NHL for a little while as an assistant photographer. And it was some of those images that I got published in our big paper in Vancouver. And I just remember seeing it, opening up the back cover that day, or the back, because the sports section was on the back, flipping it over to the back, and I see my image on it, and I was like, oh my goodness, like thousands of people are going to be holding this paper in their hand, and I took that picture. Like, for me, that's like, it gives me goosebumps. So if I was a millionaire and I could just sit here and just submit for editorial and go on fancy trips all around the world, I'm pretty sure I'd be pretty happy in life. But, I do need to make money and as a photographer. So, but the editorial game can be extremely difficult, but extremely satisfying and just awesome when you get stuff published. So
yeah, so cool. Huge congrats. What a awesome year. It's a lot of covers.
It's been amazing. I've been I hang my covers up in my studio, and my husband made a joke the other day saying I need to find a different wall now. I filled up a wall, so I'm just so happy about it. It's just so cool, and it's just a massive goal that I've checked off my list of where I wanted to be with my photography. The next one would be like National Geographic, but I'm working on that. If you're from National Geographic and you're listening, I'd love to be shooting for you guys, but I don't know if I'm on their radar there.
I actually had lunch with a guy named Mark Emery. Do you know that name?
I know that name for some reason.
He's a Nat Geo photographer and I guess now videographer. Okay, yeah. It's very similar to you. I think he's probably a decade older, and he's seen obviously a lot of changes, and I think now he's working on Planet Earth 3 with them. And yeah,
amazing,
crazy, but it's similar. He was talking about how he almost has to kind of guess what a lot of the other magazines are going to need, because I think a lot of people hear, oh my gosh, you're one of the head photographers for Nat Geo for Planet Earth, and you think, oh, he must be making millions. And he actually he guides half the year in Alaska during obviously the months that he can go guiding for fly fishing, and the other half he's taking pictures out there too, and he's trying to predict what different magazines and publishers are going to need. And he's got, like you, a database that's all well labeled, and sometimes 5 years later you get that money shot that you get paid a decent chunk of change for. So that's so cool. I want to flip over to, speaking of kind of making money and cool stuff that you're doing now. You've got this female outdoor content creator workshop that I believe you told me offline is like sold out, which is awesome. Talk about how that came about and what you guys are going to do and kind of the future of that.
Yeah. So, in the fishing industry, there's basically myself and one other woman, her name's Jessica as well, that I know of, that work full-time shooting in the sports fishing industry. There's two of us basically working full-time, making our living full-time shooting and being in this industry. There are other women out there that I've now been noticing in publications, but there really isn't anybody that if there is someone listening and you do shoot full-time in the commercial industry, call me. I'd love to talk with you. So as a female in an industry that is primarily male dominated, it's been interesting at times. It's been a workaround, and I feel at times I've had to prove myself a little bit more, and put guys' minds at ease that, yes, I know what I'm doing. And when I come on your boat, yes, I know how to photograph, and no, I won't get seasick. And yes, I could drive the boat if we needed help and we had to get back home, or I know how to put an engine up and down. You know what I mean? It's just like, there's just a lot that comes with maybe being a female in a outdoor male dominated industry. But things are changing, as we know, and that is great. And there's so many more female anglers out there, and there's so many more females on the water, captains, all that kind of stuff. But in the content creation world, there's not as many females, and there's not a big way that we're not connected. We're not really connected. And it frustrates me at sometimes because, I want to see more females out there. The one thing that would, kind of kill me is I have a couple nieces and stuff like that. And for them to ever think that there wasn't a possibility for them to do something that they were passionate about because there wasn't a lot of women, they didn't see a lot of role models maybe, that would kind of like kill me a little bit, with like, say your daughter, if she really wanted to be something in this world that was in a male dominated industry, I would hate for her to feel like she couldn't accomplish it because she didn't think that as a woman she could. So I just kind of have been sitting here a while, and now that I'm like 11 years into running my business and being in this industry, I thought, well, it's time to try to like champion women a little bit more than what has been happening in the creation world of it. And so, I don't know, I was on my 14-hour drive from Vancouver back to Montana, and I was in my car and I was listening to some podcasts of some really good famous male photographer out of Seattle named Chase Jarvis. And he is, an incredible commercial photographer. And he has a really good podcast series where he just talks about creation and content creating, and the time is now. And like, why are you waiting? If you want to be a YouTuber, then what are you waiting for? Go be a YouTuber kind of thing. So I was kind of listening to this, and then all of a sudden I was like, yeah, what am I waiting for? So I just started to like formulate an idea that, so I'm in like the grassroots process of creating a female outdoor creative collective. Very grassroots. I have an Instagram with like 52 followers on it right now with that. But I thought it would be good just to have that up there. I plan to work on launching a website this winter. But the idea is I just want to create a platform for women who are in the outdoor space, because there's actually quite a few females out there who are in the outdoor industry, whether that's like bird hunting or skiing or rock climbing, who are content creators, who are photographers. But, I just wanted to create a space where there's women out there, where we can learn from each other and create a platform where we can maybe learn from each other. So, I know there's YouTube and all this stuff, but I just thought it would be fun if I could start making some videos or talk with people or have other people make videos of tips and tricks that they could come up with that could be a really cool kind of community. That's my goal through education, to kind of empower some more females to get out there and just photograph. And, if you think about it, like, I love to go fishing with my husband. Well, I usually have a camera in my hand, and if I wasn't a professional photographer and the two of us were fishing together, he would probably either take a picture of me with a fish or I'd take a picture with him with a fish. Well, I think that there's just value in getting better at taking those images. So if maybe you can then spend more time with your partner out there on the water, if you think about it, because then you can get cool pictures and stuff like that. So, I was throwing this idea around, and I talked with Mo, and Mo being one of my big champions in life for pushing my career forward in the industry, which I'm so grateful for her and Eric for that. She was like, why don't you do a workshop with me? And I was like, that is a fantastic idea. So we came up with an idea. It's just 2 days on the water, 3 nights at Journey South Outfitters. It's all inshore, and it's a group of 4 women. We have spots for 4, because we're on the CB Bay boat. So we're not on the big offshore boat. We're on the CB Bay boat's, I think, 28 feet or 27 feet or something. So it's a pretty decent sized boat, and the CBs are, awesome. So the idea is we will do educational stuff in the evening. So we'll talk about file management or whatever software programs the majority of the people want to learn. If you want to learn Lightroom or an app on your phone, I'm going to basically design that teaching aspect around meeting the goals of the girls that are coming. And so, they haven't received it yet, but they're going to be receiving a kind of a form to fill out to let me know kind of what they want to learn. And then we'll do two days on the water. So we'll talk about documenting a trip from start to finish and creating hero shots and all this kind of stuff. So the goal was to fill one trip. And, you know, Mo's like, I think you can do it, to fill one trip and we'll go from there. And in less than 24 hours, I had a wait list.
Wow.
And I was like, what? You know, when I launched that video, actually, I did a little countdown on my Instagram, and I was in Florida photographing for a girl named Jen Ripple, who runs Dun Magazine, and she owns and runs Dun Magazine, and then a girl named Heather Hodgson, which is she's an incredible person here in the fly fishing world, and you know, lectures all over, and is a big champion for women. And so I was photographing their trip for them, and we were in Florida. And the 30th of October hit, and I get a text from Mo in the evening. She goes, "It's the 30th today. You know you're supposed to announce the workshop." And I was like, "Oh God."
You forgot.
I lost track of my days. Yeah, so I'm like, "Okay, I'm on it. So I get back to the hotel. I launched the video I had created. Mo launched it on hers, and then Journey South. And yeah, waitlisted after 24 hours. So I call Mo from the airport the next day. I'm like, I'm waitlisted. She goes, well, why don't we add on a trip to the front end? And I said, okay. So add a trip onto the front end. And then I get waitlisted again. And we're not even 72 hours out. And I call her and she goes, okay, we'll add one more trip onto the back end. And I was like, okay. I mean, so she's given me 3 trips in a row. I've got them all booked, and women from all over, all different abilities, from professional photographers to people who work, you know, some brands, working, like I had said, in some brands, and they just want to be better at creating content. So we're going to do some film stuff. We're going to do, photography stuff. We're going to talk about how to contact editors, formulate emails. I mean, everything you can think of that they want to learn, I'm going to do my best to impart on them. And I'm hoping that we can grow this and do this in other locations, because I do understand financially it's tough for some people to get to New Orleans. And when I sent out those emails, I had a whole bunch of guys sending me emails like, hey, well, if you do one for like everybody, let us know. And people asking if I'd be, you know, doing some closer to home in Idaho, Montana. So looking at formulating some more workshops up in this area. And I've actually approached a couple of professional female photographers that I'd really love to collaborate with, because I feel like it's a big goal and it's a lot for one person to try to achieve. Yep. And I feel like if we work together, we can achieve it better. And that's the whole point of the Female Outdoor Creative Collective, is trying to create a community so we can work together, because power is in numbers, and you'll learn more from people if you surround yourself with talented, hardworking people. So
I love it. I actually heard on a. Oh, I'm sorry. Go for it.
No, that's it.
That's so cool. He has a podcast this morning. The guy was talking about the power of community and just having others like that. And he said, you can go fast by yourself, but you can go really far with others. And I thought that was so true. Right. And even totally. With partnerships with business, or if you end up partnering with someone to kind of take this workshop idea to another level, you can do a lot of stuff fast. Like you can make decisions fast, but you can only go far if you have others, you know, kind of helping you and backing you, and really that network of, in your case, other women who just want to become better content creators. So I think that's awesome. And that's what we do here with our Insider Club. You know, that's the reason we built it, is to have the power of that network, to be able to ask a question. Hey, I'm going fishing with my kid this weekend in this area. What should I do? And not have to worry about people poking fun at you and all just the negative stuff that's out there on some of the social media platforms. So that's so awesome.
Sure. And I know I've been a professional photographer for a long time, but I can't pretend like I don't know everything. And that's the thing, is I'm learning every day from, I'm a YouTube junkie. I would admit I do watch YouTube a lot, but I'm always like thinking of something. I'm like, man, how do I do that? Or how do I do that editing technique? And, the younger generation kind of has taken over YouTube, and man, I'm learning a ton from them, and that is amazing. But I do honestly feel in this industry, if you're not opening to learning and growing and accepting new ideas and stuff like that, then you just won't make it after a while.
Yep.
I was at Bassmaster Classic last year, shooting for a brand while I was there, and I was on the dock for launch, and usually there's like a whole bunch of guys there, photographers that have been in the industry for a really long time. And usually they're on the dock. And, that morning I had my press pass. I'm down on the dock. I'm shooting. I'm getting iPhone content for one of the brands too, which is really funny for their live feed. And so I'm multitasking, and I'm walking around and I start looking up, and I'm like, there's a whole bunch of really like young people down here. I mean, like, and I don't consider myself to be like super old. I'm, 36, but I'm like, there's like guys down here in their like 20s. I'm like, what is going on? And so I finally stopped one of the guys and I said, what are you shooting for? And he goes, oh, I'm a YouTuber. And then I find out he's like one of the largest like bass YouTubers on YouTube. And I just was like, oh, and then I looked back behind the railing where the guardrail was, and there's all those, older photographers that didn't get press passes to get down on the dock.
Wow.
And I was kind of like, okay, things are changing.
Yeah.
So
wow.
Either we adapt or we don't. And if we don't, we won't continue on working professionally. It just won't work out. So, I just thought that was super interesting. And I was like, okay, so everybody's YouTubers. All right, cool. And now I watch their channels, and I'm like, I met that guy at Bassmaster. He was very nice.
Who was it?
You
remember?
Tyler, he's from Texas, A&M.
Yeah, Tyler Anderson.
Aggie ring on.
Yep.
Yeah. He's got a big following, and it was just so funny because I noticed his Aggie ring, and I married into a family of Aggies, and I was like, oh, you went to A&M? He's like, well, I'm still going there. I'm like, well, what are you doing here? So I'm a YouTuber, and I'm like, oh, so it's just it's super interesting, and that's the best thing is being able to, I appreciate too watching their content and knowing that how hard it is to like say film yourself bass fishing and narrate it and fish at the same time. So it's just like, and then edit it all together. It's quite an accomplishment a lot of these people are doing. So you can learn a lot from if you're open to it, you can learn a lot, and that's just kind of the way I look at it.
It's awesome. Well, yeah, Jessica, this has been great. I'm looking. This has been such a fun conversation. We already went over an hour here, so I apologize.
Oh man, sorry.
No, it's a good thing. We probably could have gone another hour. To wrap it up, tell us. Obviously, do you have any other outdoor content creator, like any other workshops coming up, or are you now like when is this one? It's 2020? Obviously, it's not.
Yes, 2020. This one's in May of 2020.
Okay,
so I am currently in talks with a outfitter here in Montana, Idaho. You would leave from Montana in a small plane, and you'd land in Idaho in the middle of nowhere, where two beautiful rivers converge. And we're in talks right now about potentially doing a workshop. It would be roughing it. We'd be in wall tents. It would be pretty amazing. And it would also probably incorporate maybe 3 to 4 hours of personal fly fishing a day. Plus, we would, just for fun, because, if you're on a river in the middle of nowhere where no one touches that river, you need to fish, hopefully, a little bit. But trying to formulate an idea of putting together something like maybe in August or September. They are a hunting outfitter business, so they just want to fill some spots during the non-hunting season, which would be August, when things are too hot. And it would be fun to do a creative workshop where we could do everything from like star trails at night to photographing camp life and camp scene and wildlife and fishing while we're at it in the middle of nowhere. So that's currently in talks. They have all the outfitting licenses, so I need to kind of formulate a plan and then hopefully launch something, see if it would be a small group. And then I'm hoping to do some more non-on-location stuff, so just more classroom lecture stuff, maybe where we go out and do a photo walk here in Montana or in Idaho. And that would be open because, like I said to you earlier while we weren't recording, I'm not a man-hater, and I'm a huge fan of working with other guys in the industry and learning from other guys in the industry and talking with other people. And I think there's a massive benefit in that. I'm just trying to create a safe space for women to kind of feel more confident to learn. But I'm hoping to actually have some workshops that can include men and women or anybody, all ages. And that would be more localized. So yeah, just, trying to think of other ways to work within the photography industry that doesn't always require me to be away from home all the time. And even though I love that aspect, but it would be nice to be able to impart some more information and be a little bit more local, at times. So that's kind of the idea. So hopefully just stay tuned and look out on most of my information's on my Instagram page. My website I haven't updated in quite a long time. I just put that blog post for the workshop on there, but
and what's
between my Facebook page.
Yeah, what is it? Is it just Jessica Haydahl Richardson? Haydahl, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Haydahl.
Well, so Haydahl is the main name, and if you put Haydahl into anything, you'll find me because I'm the only one in the world, Jessica Haydahl. So, and if you find other Haydahls, they're my direct family members, so you can usually trace them from Norway back to me somewhere here. So, Haydahl Photo is my Instagram, and it's Hay, and then the Dahl is spelled the same way that like Thor Heyerdahl, the guy that like rode the Kentucky across the Pacific, it's spelled the same way as some of those other Norwegians, the last name in Dahl. So, but if you put in Jessica Richardson, 1 million people will come up. So don't do that.
That's pretty funny.
I married into like the top 25 most popular names in America. So I always find that quite funny. I went from being pretty individualistic to being part of a massive crowd. So I try to keep Haydahl in there. So Jessica Haydahl Richardson, and then the Female Outdoor Creative Collective. Like I said, it's just in the grassroots. So I only have 52 followers, but I try to kind of repost videos on that and anything that I might. People ask me questions all the time on camera gear and how I do something. So I try to do short little videos and post them on that Instagram feed as well. And it was really cool. When I created that the other day, I got maybe 5 or 6 girls that had added me and sent me a message, and they're in the outdoor industry and they're photographers and they're badasses. And it was really cool to see kind of some of the imagery that they were putting out. And I was like, I would never have gotten connected with them unless there was a platform to connect. So, just try to create something that's pretty cool and fun. And, I don't know. That's about it.
That's too cool.
If you have any questions, also, I always say that if you have any questions regarding photography, the industry, getting started in, or anything like that, feel free to send me an email. All my information through Instagram or whatever is online. Send me an email and I'll do my best to get back to you. And, just don't send me an email asking like, what camera should I buy? Give me some more specifics. So like, I love to do this. I do this and this is my price range. What camera should I buy? Then I'm better at assisting you. Otherwise, I might send you back an email being like, I don't know what camera you should buy. So, but feel free to reach out. And also, I'm doing a lecture at the Denver Fly Fishing Show in January 3rd. So if you're more on the fly fishing side and you'll be at that show, I'm going to do a lecture on fishing photography. So it's going to be more specific to just kind of the everyday average person out there on the water and how we're going to, how to hold a fish, what to think of, what equipment you could use, whether it's your iPhone or a GoPro, and we'll talk about that kind of stuff. So if you're in Denver, come find me. I'll be around the Women's Showcase probably, and we'll have a lecture, and it's open to all men and women and people of all ages. So.
Cool. Awesome. Well, this has been great. For any of you who have more questions, definitely reach out. Definitely give Jessica a follow, and we'll put a couple links in the show notes at saltstrong.com/podcast. You'll see this episode there, and we'll put a couple of her pictures and links to her sites, and definitely that video of your dad, the captain. That was really cool.
Yeah, thank you.
And what was interesting,
he's pretty cool.
Yeah, but to me, looking, obviously, I only saw one aspect of his life, but he spent a lot of time in a chair looking at old photos. And I've got a younger brother who is disabled, and he spends a lot of time in his wheelchair looking at photos. So it is the power of capturing, moments of our time that we can go look back. I think that was so powerful of how much that meant to him, of looking at these old photos and these old memories. So kind of ties it all in together. Yep, go for it.
And it was pretty amazing because he started thinking about those memories, and all of a sudden, verbally, he was just going on, and it's a little bit harder for him to verbally communicate, like he used to. So, my dad had some mini strokes, and it was amazing because he started looking at those photos, and next thing you know, he was just rolling off sentences about some of the shipwrecks he was on and saving a guy, and it was in the newspaper, and it's just like it was really cool, and it was something I had been sitting around. No one wants to make a video about their aging parents. And for a very long time, I had been thinking, I need to record my dad. I need to record him. His stories of growing up in Norway during like World War II and stuff like that. Like, my dad has so much history. He cut down one of the largest, he cut down a redwood that ended up being carved into one of the largest totem poles in the world that got given to the Queen of England. And this totem pole sits in, at the gardens at the palace, and he's gone to visit it, and they did like a press tour with him because back in the 50s he was logging and he got hired to cut down this tree. And so just trying to record a little bit of history, and I wish I had started 10 years earlier, but I'm glad we did something together that day. And again, my dad's a quite the character, and doing things on his walker he shouldn't be doing, like trying to clip trees leaning on his walker. He uses his walker to carry things around, and we're like, that's not the point of it. So take a look at that. And then actually I have a short film that I did make at Christmas Island. I have it submitted to the IF4 right now, but I haven't heard back, so I'm not sure if it got selected. But if it didn't, I'm hoping to premiere it somehow. It's about 7 women and their trip to Christmas Island, and cool. I think it's the first film of just women characters shot by a female. So I'm hoping that film can get. No one's seen it yet because I haven't been able to put it anywhere. But just kind of everybody keep their eyes open, and hopefully get some people to see it. Maybe put it on the Orvis film tour. If it doesn't make the I4, I'm hoping it does, but I haven't heard back, and we're already past the deadline. So who knows what will happen there. But that's just another little project that's been sitting kind of in the back burner, just waiting to hopefully get released, and appreciate these women's journey to go there. And it was a pretty epic trip. If you haven't been to Christmas Island, it's a pretty incredible place.
Yeah, well, I can't wait to see it when it gets published. Well, cool, Jessica, this has been really, really fun. I'm really proud of everything that you're doing. And for any of you, female or male, want to be photographers or current photographers, videographers, definitely check her out and try to get on this next workshop. I think that's just such a great idea, and probably some amazing memories and friendships will be formed. So keep up the great work. Everyone go check her out.
Thanks
give her a follow, and I will put all the show notes at saltstrong.com/podcast. And as always, please do like and subscribe, I guess is the word, for iTunes. I think some of the platforms have I think this thing is on 50 platforms now. And then obviously subscribe and give us a review finally. So thank you all so much for all the love, all the support. Jessica, thank you for being an awesome guest, and we will chat to y'all soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Peace. We out.
'Cause fishing, it's in my soul, it was pain.